Hello all. I've wanted to do this Aero short for some time. In making this series, we decided we could not put forward any ideas that were not plausible. For example, we always fight the Aero above 50,000 feet. That's where it could probably still outturn most fighters today. At lower altitudes, it was still fast, but limited to possibly 6 Gs and target practice for a modern fighter. But where did we get these crazy ideas of what the Aero could do? Well, from Avro itself. The image on screen shows something very futuristic, even today. It appears to be a Mark III Aero with rocket propulsion. Who would believe that? Well, Avro did. This image shows the concept design. It is actually a ramjet that could also be a fuel pod. Perhaps it is both, not sure. One could say that this might just be a sketch and not to be taken seriously. This next image is not a sketch, I can assure you. I was a technical illustrator in another life. This is a month of work on paper. And now let's have a look at this. Retractable canards. This was likely to compensate for the weight imbalance. Here we see the new designs for the Mark III, which we covered extensively. But you will notice that as we blow up on this scene, there is a cutaway of the honeycomb material that Avro patented for use in the variable geometry inlets. These are ideas that did not work in our series clearly, but this is a rocket booster assembly for a zero runway launch. As you can see, there was significant thought put into this. These images show how the Aeros would be kept in hangars to scramble on short notice. This image shows a reconnaissance version of the Aero with cameras in the weapons bay. This drawing shows a version of the Aero with guns and rockets. This is an early drawing of an Aero. Note the IR seeker on the tail. This would have been used for passive target detection. This has all been leading up to something I want to explain in more detail. This next drawing shows an early version of the Aero before the extended nose with 4 500-pound WW2 era bombs. This drawing would have been early 50s, but shows that either Avro or the RCF was thinking of a strike Aero. As part of the cancelled Astra Fire Control System, the Aero was to have, and this is a quote from historical records, the radar, in addition to target detection and tracking, also was to provide navigation aids in the form of radar beacon, interrogation, and ground mapping. But just because the Astra Fire Control System was cancelled did not mean the requirement for ground mapping radar was cancelled. This is something that Avro planners did well. They incorporated the hooks in early models that would make it easier to upgrade future models with emerging technology. Britain had developed ground mapping radar in WW2, and Avro Britain was using the Mk9 system on Avro Vulcan bombers in the 1950s, and the Americans also had a system in place. The Aero was designed with a steerable radar dish that would normally scan in the azimuth, but was planned to be able to look down, so incorporating ground mapping radar would be simpler. It was only a question of who would supply the cockpit portion of ground mapping radar, Britain or America. A final note on the Astra Fire Control System. Although Hughes declined to take on a contract to develop the Astra Fire Control System for Canada because there would be no market for it in America, they developed a system that essentially was the Astra Fire Control System after the Aero was cancelled.